Hi there, my name is Jack Wallen, and I'm here to talk to you about something. What is that something? Well, it's sort of a reaction to my last video in which I was kind of in a bad place. And that's fine. We all eventually, at some point in our lives, wind up in a bad place. We just have to hope that it's temporary. And generally speaking, every vacation I take to that bad place is temporary. But one of the first things I want to address is the idea of obstacles and art. Every medium of art has its obstacles, every single one of them. Now, I haven't really ventured into every medium of art. I am certainly not a pianist, violinist, a cellist. I wish I were a cellist, or a violinist, or a pianist for that matter. I have dealt with, obviously, writing, acting, singing, a little bit of dance, not a whole lot, just when it's called for in a show. I'm not a dancer, I'm an actor who moves. But the thing is that as an artist, you have to know, absolutely have to know, that life is going to throw obstacles at you from every corner. 360 degrees of obstacles. Whether it be society, whether it be money, whether it be your creative process, whether it be your loved ones lacking support, whether it be not enough time because you have a what's supposed to be a 40-hour-a-week job, which turns out to be 60 or 70 hours a week. And that's a big problem for artists. And it really becomes a problem when you let those things prevent you from doing your art. Now, here's one of the things. I have been within the realm of artistry for almost 4 decades. Can you believe that? And if there's one thing that I can say about artists without hesitation, it's that artists persevere. When an artist is thrown an obstacle, an artist figures out a way to get around it. Whether it's over it, around it, under it, it doesn't matter. And part of that is due to the fact that from an early period of our artistry, whether it be in high school or undergrad or grad school, whatever, we learn very quickly that what it takes to be a successful artist, and part of that is determination. When I teach acting classes, I'm very upfront about this, that life is going to throw obstacle after obstacle at you in order to try to stop you from doing what you love to do. And you are beholden to your craft and those who want to experience your craft, to not let those obstacles get you down. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's so hard. Sometimes it's not. I have experienced the whole spectrum of difficulty. And at the same time, every instance where life throws a hurdle at me, one of the very first things I say to myself is, how do we get around this? How do we overcome this particular obstacle? Knowing full well that life is going to throw yet another one at us. So it's almost as if every time I start to get involved in an artistic project, I approach it with the idea that something is going to get in the way. And so I prepare from the jump for that very thing. For example, here's a great example. The Me and My Muse project. It is forefront in my mind right now. Well, for the last few months, it's been in the forefront of my mind because it's a big, big project and it's really important to me. And I have set myself up for so many difficulties in this project. But in doing so, I knew from the very beginning that I was setting myself up for these difficulties. And I knew that I would have to come up with ways to get around them before they happen. And here's a good example. So when I first planned this idea, I knew that I wanted to have a live camera on stage so that the audience could see close-ups, they could see things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to see from an audience perspective. And at the same time, I knew that it was going to be really hard to do. And at one point, I decided, now this is too much. Let's cut it because this thing is already very difficult. So if I get rid of this, it's one less obstacle. But the more I thought about it, the more disappointed I was that I let the obstacle of difficulty stop me even before I got started. So well in advance, I said, okay, how can I make this happen? I did my research and I spent a few weeks looking at products that could make it happen, and I finally found one. And as soon as I got it, I tested it. It works fine. And then as soon as I figured out how it was going to work, then I started realizing, okay, there are multiple branches of difficulties that could happen at this point. So I had to decide which of those difficulties were going to be the most challenging. And when I discovered that, I tackled that particular one first. Okay, now that I have the ability to transmit wirelessly a signal from a camera to a projector, now I have the other projector that I need for the flashbacks. And so now I have a show with two projectors. And I know that the theater has a projector already in place that is already wired, goes back to the sound booth and blah, blah, blah. And I had to start thinking, okay, well, which projector is going to be used for which? And I started looking, I went down a rabbit hole of very, very long HDMI cables to run from one of the projectors to the booth to my laptop. And I found a 40-foot cable and I thought, well, I could splice that in with another cable and blah, 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 blah. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's a projector already wired. I don't have to do this. I just have to switch which projector I was going to use for what. So now, instead of the onstage live camera being projected to a smaller screen, the onstage live camera will be projected to the larger screen, and the flashbacks will go to a smaller screen. And then I thought, okay, well, how do I make this set stand out? I thought, okay, well, I make that screen part of the set. So as you can see, there was kind of a domino effect with this one difficulty. And because it went in this sort of domino fashion, I was able to go, okay, I'm at this roadblock. How do I fix this? Once I did that, I was able to go on to the next one. And eventually I got to the point where it was like, oh, all the roadblocks are gone. They're out of my way. This is going to work. And there are other roadblocks. I wouldn't call them roadblocks. There are other challenges. Like, for example, the first episode of Me and My Muse is essentially just two people. And it's roughly 50 minutes. It's me and Keith McGill, who is a very talented comedian in town and an actor. He's going to play the Muse. It's just he and I for 50 minutes. And we have to memorize all of this. So I thought, okay, I know that I'm not the best at memorizing, so I'm going to have to figure out how long I need to memorize this. And so we have not set a date yet, but I know that probably starting the end of winter or midwinter I'm going to have to start memorizing. Another obstacle out of the way. Of course, there are bigger obstacles. There's financing. I've got to figure out how to pay someone to build the set. I've got to figure all these. So you see, because I don't have a theater backing me, I've got to figure all of this out. Now, I have written a grant proposal. Hopefully I can get some grant money for this, because we plan on doing talkbacks after the show, wherein one of the cast members is a life coach, and he wants to discuss some of the issues that we address in the show with the audience after the fact. So I think we'll be able to get some grant money for it. So maybe that's another hurdle that's out of the way. But you see what I'm getting at? Life is about hurdles. It's about overcoming obstacles. And artists have absolutely no shortage of obstacles. And if you are an artist, whether you're a writer, a painter, an actor, a musician, it doesn't matter. You fully understand what I'm talking about. Totally. If you're a musician in a band, you got to find gigs, because clearly bands aren't making enough money from record sales to make a living. It's all about the live gig. So, okay, we got to find gigs. And if you can't find a gig, then what do you do? What do you do if you can't find gigs? Right? Writers. You. Right there. I know. I see you. I see you, and you see me. I know what it's like. Trust me, I know what it's like. You probably, I bet you money, you woke up this morning and the first thing you did was look at your Amazon dashboard to see how many books you had sold this month. And when you saw the number, your heart dropped into your stomach. And you thought, why am I bothering? You're bothering because you're an artist. And because you're an artist, you have it in you to overcome this. Life, my friends, is about dynamics. It's the push and pull, the give and take, the party and the after party. And you have to understand, you have to figure out how to navigate that ebb and flow. And that doesn't just apply to artists, that applies to everyone. You're in a marriage, or you're in a relationship. You wake up one morning and everything's great. You and your partner are having a wonderful time. Everything is lighthearted. You're laughing, loving, living. And then you wake up the next morning and it's all turned to shit. You don't know where to start or where to begin, where to end, where the middle is. You do not understand what's going on. Just out of nowhere, it's like, whoa, what happened? Yesterday we were, but today we're, what? Come on. And I know this is so cliche. And I even hate to bring it up, but it's like the old saying that you can't have good without evil. Because if you only had good, you wouldn't be able to see the good after a while. It would all just become a blur. And having the bad with the good makes you really appreciate the good. Like I talk about this a lot, and I think I mentioned it during the last video, that one of the most wonderful times of my life was when I was a resident company member with Stage 1. And I try not to measure every moment of my life with that, because, I mean, it's almost not fair, because I was eating, sleeping, living, and breathing acting. That's all I did. It's all I wanted to do. And now I very rarely get the chance to do it, which is one of the reasons why I developed the Me and My Muse project. But I, I have ridden this roller coaster of life for a very long time. And since I was a child, I had a really, really bad childhood. There was mental abuse, there was emotional abuse, there was physical abuse. There was all sorts of horrible things. And I made it my mission at some point in high school to get out of there and to never follow in the footsteps of my family. And so I went off on this quest to become an actor and do everything completely opposite as to how my family functioned. So I have that as sort of a litmus test of what good and bad is. And that dynamic plays into my life all the time. Yeah, it's bad, but it's not mom locking you in the closet bad. It's not mom beating your head against the basement floor bad. It's not seeing your one brother pick up a bicycle and hit another brother with it. Yeah, there were some really bad fights in my family. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're an artist, the two things you have to develop very early on, even before your career gets kickstarted, you have to develop a really thick skin, and you have to develop a dogged sense of determination. I'm talking Jack Russell level of determination. If you've ever been around a Jack Russell, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They are one of the most determined dogs I've ever met. And if you can't develop those two things, you are going to struggle. Because the first time you come across a serious obstacle, you're going to give up. Had I not developed this dogged sense of determination early on in my career, I would have stopped writing after my first book was published. I would have given up. And then I would have given up after my second book was published, my third book, my fourth book, my fifth book, all the way to my 60th book. I would have given up. But thankfully, I am a very determined person. So that's the thing, artists. Know that you are going to run up against obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And when you do, take a step back, don't give up, and just think, how do I get around this? Do I get over it, around it, under it, through it, what? It doesn't matter. I just have to get onto the other side of this obstacle. Because if I don't, I may as well give up. Be determined. And for God's sake, develop that thick skin. Because you're going to need it. I have suffered some brutal reviews over the years. I have suffered some serious rejection over the years. And eventually I just said, okay, well, that's just the way it is. And everybody has an opinion. And they're welcome to it. And I'm not going to let it get me down. Being an artist is a great thing. Creating something out of nothing is magical. And as I'm writing a book or I'm rehearsing a show, I can feel this surge of beautiful energy rushing through my body, knowing that I am creating something out of nothing. Obstacles aside, nothing can touch that. Actually, I said that wrong. Not obstacles, nothing. No person, no lack of funds, nothing can touch that. That feeling of creating something new. So whenever you are faced with those obstacles and you think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, just sit back and feel that wash of energy and joy that you experience as you create, and it will alleviate the pain of those obstacles and put you in a mindset wherein you can overcome them. And there you go. The dynamics of life and being an artist. My S's just seem to want to come out today. I don't know why. I actually had a discussion yesterday with my wife that I was starting to fear that my vocal vocabulary, my vocabulary when I speak, is vanishing. It's going away. And the reason for that is I spend most of my days alone. I spend most of my days talking to cats because I work from home. I'm isolated most of the time. My wife is gone at work and I don't really have anybody to talk to. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. I guess maybe that's why when I start doing these videos, they tend to get really long because I just want to talk. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very, very much for giving me a little bit of your time today. It means the world to me. I hope that I have helped you or inspired you or whatever that you needed at this moment. Just know that you can do this. You can get through this. You can get beyond the obstacles that life puts in front of you to prevent you from creating the thing that you create. Because trust me when I tell you that the world wants your creativity. The world needs it. I hope you and everyone you know and love have a wonderful, wonderful day.